Clerk, are we live?
Mr. Chair, we are.
Good morning. I'll now call to order the regular meeting of January 13th, 2020. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all 5 supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage. I'll remind members of the public that have requested to speak to wait to dial into the meeting until the item is called. With that, I'll now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson?
Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer? Supervisor Desmond?
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Here.
Chair Fletcher?
Here. The first item on our order of business is a report of any reportable actions from yesterday's closed session. I'll ask County Counsel if there's a report.
Yes, thank you. On January 12th, 2021, the Board of Supervisors met in closed session starting at 2:15 p.m. and adjourning at 2:55 p.m. The Board took the following reportable actions. Item 21B, Public Employment, Chief Probation Officer. With all board members voting aye, select Cesar Escuro to serve as Acting Chief Probation Officer effective January 29, 2021. Item 21C, Public Employment, County Counsel. With all board members voting aye, selected David Smith to serve as Acting County Counsel effective January 13th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Counsel. Next on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address our board on any subject matters within the board's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. Reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public that are non-English speakers and require interpretation assistance will get twice the allotted time. Mr. Clerk, do we have any requests for non-agendized public comments?
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 2 requests to speak under matters not listed on the agenda. For those individuals that have requested to speak, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Also note for the record that we received 4 e-comments that were distributed to the board and are available online for the public. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number, and they'll hear a notification that their call has been unmuted. They'll then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'm just waiting for the callers to dial in at this moment. We have a request from Jaden James and Kathleen Lippett. If those individuals are available to dial into the board meeting, please do so now.
Mr. Clerk, if they aren't able to join, perhaps we could move this to the end of the agenda and come back unless we think they're about to join.
One individual has called in.
Oh, perfect. Let's do that one individual.
So 4592, please state your name for the record, and then you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. 4592.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and Supervisors, fellow supervisors. My name is Kathleen Lippett, and in support of public health, I respectfully request that the board consider requiring all multi-unit housing developments to adopt smoke-free policies. Smoke-free properties can reduce associated costs, risks, and liabilities. They're attractive to residents, and they can be legally adopted for all types of housing. They protect residents with health issues caused or exacerbated by exposure to secondhand smoke. And smoke-free buildings don't mean smokers can't live there or must quit. It just means that they cannot smoke inside the building or in some specified areas. Smoking, vaping increases the risk of more serious outcomes for COVID. It causes respiratory damage, inflammation, heart damage, and a weakened immune system. and ventilation systems only reduce indoor smoking, not the indoor contamination or toxic chemical exposure from smoke. Banning both tobacco and marijuana smoking inside and near the complex is a sound public health policy. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me speak. Okay, bye.
The other caller has not joined at this point, Chair Fletcher.
Great, thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the amended statement of proceedings for the meeting of December 9th, 2020. Same with yesterday, we're just approving the form of the minutes and not the actual content. With that, I would make a motion to approve the statement of proceedings and minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by myself, a second by Supervisor Lawson Remer. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye.
And Chair Fletcher.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of the consent calendar. I will ask our clerk, are there any items that the public wishes to be pulled for discussion?
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Item 1 has been continued to the February 10th, 2021 meeting. Item 4 has been pulled by the public, and item 5 has been pulled by the public. All the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda may be placed in the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
All right, thank you. I'll now go to my colleague, Supervisor Anderson. Are there any items you wish to pull or comments to make?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson Remer.
Nope.
Supervisor Desmond.
No items to pull and no comments. Thank you.
Supervisor Vargas.
No items to pull.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Vargas to approve the consent calendar. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed to our 2 items on our agenda today. We're going to start with agenda item 4, adopting a resolution to apply for and accept grant funding from the statewide park program grant effort. And I will turn it over to a staff presentation.
Before the staff presentation begins, any members of the public have requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. Today's request is to adopt a resolution authorizing the Department of Parks and Recreation to apply for and accept grant funding from the Statewide Park Development and Community Revitalization Program. Upon passage of Prop 68 in 2018, funding for this program was made available for local governments. The competitive program is now in its 4th round of applications with $395 million available to create new parks and recreation opportunities in underserved communities across California. In a previous round, the county received a grant for Lincoln Acres Park near National City, which is currently being completed. To receive a statewide park program grant contract, DPR must submit a resolution adopted by the Board of Supervisors approving the application and acceptance of grant funds. DPR developed an equity-focused capital investment model that we use to assess community needs and prioritize capital projects throughout the county. We use the model to help identify the most competitive projects for grant opportunities like the statewide parks program. The model assesses park acreage and accessibility to parks in each community, the number and type of amenities that are available, environmental sustainability components of each project, and the amount of park-related investments in each community. The goal of the model is to achieve equitable park investment in the region. When we analyze potential grant opportunities, we review both the capital investment model and the specific individual grant requirements. For the statewide park program, DPR reviewed 97 active park projects using the model and compared the projects to the grant eligibility criteria. To be eligible for the grant, projects must meet a number of criteria, including being located in a community with less than 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, or a median household income below $57,000, having been designed with input from at least 5 public meetings after 2018, should involve a project that offers volunteer or employment opportunities, and upon completion will be open to the public without fees or with low fees that will not deter public access. DPR identified 3 projects that align with the grant criteria: Fallbrook Local Park, Bonsall Community Park, and Tijuana River Valley Regional Park Equestrian Campground. Fallbrook Local Park and Bonsall Community Park were selected as most competitive to score highest based on the amount of local engagement in the design process, addressing a critical lack of park space, creation of volunteer opportunities, and incorporation of green infrastructure improvements that will provide multiple environmental benefits. Both projects will be shovel-ready and can be completed within required timelines. For the Tijuana River Valley project, we are not shovel-ready, and we believe will score lower for a number of reasons, one of which is that the public engagement for this project took place primarily in 2018 or earlier. DPR proposes to apply for $4.2 million total in state park program funding to expand access to the parks in the underserved areas in Fallbrook and Bonsall. $1.2 million is being requested for Fallbrook Local Park. This 7-acre park will feature multiple elements prioritized by the community, including pathways, skate elements, play areas, picnic areas, and an open lawn. The total project cost for Fallbrook Local Park is roughly $4 million. $2 million was appropriated in FY 19-20 for acquisition, planning, design, and environmental. A community development block grant was later received to cover acquisition costs, which meant the $2 million could now be used to partially fund construction. This grant opportunity that we are pursuing would help close the constructing funding gap, along with an additional grant that DPR is pursuing through the state's Urban Greening Grant Program. If we don't receive the grant funding, we will continue to seek funding through the SENA process and pursue other potential grant funding sources. $3 million is being requested for Bonsall Community Park, located in the greater San Luis Rey River Park near the intersection of Highway 76 and Camino del Rey. This 63-acre park will feature multi-use pathways, soccer fields, baseball and softball fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, restrooms, playgrounds, a bike skills park, a skate park, picnic areas, and a dog park. The total anticipated cost of this project is $25 million, split into 2 primary construction phases. Roughly $1 million has already been appropriated to fund the planning, design, and environmental analysis. The 2 construction phases will each cost roughly $12 million and will commence as funding becomes available. Phase 1, which is prioritized in the SENA and anticipated to be funded in part by the grant, includes the soccer fields, the bike park and skate areas, a playground, restrooms, connecting pathways, and intersection improvements. If only the grant funding is available, DPR will complete a portion of the first phase that includes part of the skate and bike skills area, a playground, 1 soccer field, a restroom, and connecting pathways. Phase 2 includes the rest of the park and will be considered as a future SENA project after Phase 1 is complete. Today's request is to adopt a resolution authorizing DPR to apply for and accept up to $4.2 million from the statewide park program grant. The request will also find the proposed action as exempt from CEQA and authorize the director of DPR to conduct negotiations and execute all documents necessary to apply for and accept the grant funds. This completes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask if there's, before we see if there's public comment, do any of the board members have questions for staff? Supervisor Desmond.
Well, just for, I guess, I know we want to go to the public comment, but I'll make a motion to approve this item and thank staff for their very hard work on this effort. So I'll put that motion out there.
I'll second.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'll ask the clerk, are there any requests for public comment on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did receive 1 request to speak on this item, but that caller has not dialed into the meeting. I take that back. It looks like they have. Okay, that is, the caller has not joined the meeting.
Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments from any members of the board? Hearing none, we have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Supervisor Vargas. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Supervisor Anderson,
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer,
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond,
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas,
Aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
All right, thank you. We will move to our final agenda item of the day, agenda item 5.5, framework for the future actions to achieve bold climate action at the County of San Diego. This item is brought forward by Supervisors Lawson-Remer and myself. I will turn it first to Supervisor Lawson-Remer if she would like to make some introductory comments.
I would. So first of all, I just would like to thank you and for co-docketing this with me, and also really frankly thank the community and District 3 residents over the last many years in all of our conversations and all of our dialogues of emphasizing how important this issue is for everyone in our community. I'm proud to bring this forward today and co-file this with Supervisor Fletcher, but fundamentally this reflects the priorities of our entire community, of the residents across San Diego County, because I cannot tell you how many times, how many days, how many conversations I've had where the end of the conversation said, that's important, that's an important issue, but none of this is important if we can't address the climate crisis. None of this matters if we can't address the climate crisis, because we face a real climate crisis. We face an existential crisis. It is the definition of existential. And I'm very proud that we now have new leadership on this Board of Supervisors that is committed to climate action. If we cannot rise to meet this moment, if we cannot decarbonize our economy and our society and pivot towards a green future that puts us in harmony with our ecosystems, we will leave our children a planet ravaged by wildfires and rising sea levels, extreme heat waves and famines, and even more deadly pandemics. We must move beyond doing the bare minimum, or even less, to going above and beyond. The county needs a real climate action plan. It is essential. Our communities deserve a plan that is effective, innovative, and can serve as a national model, a gold standard for how we in San Diego and then around the world can address the climate crisis. With this vote, we will not only begin moving forward the development of a new climate action plan that reaches state GHG reduction goals. My objective is that we create and adopt and implement a plan that exceeds those goals, that moves us towards zero carbon by 2035. This item will also set up the ability to implement a new climate action plan with other jurisdictions through other mechanisms such as regional sustainability plans and other instruments that we will be thinking about and developing in the coming months. The goal is simple. This county must put itself on a path to decarbonizing San Diego County as quickly as possible, getting to zero carbon emissions in the next 15 years. And we must do it in a way that creates green jobs and sustainable jobs and prioritizes social equity. So I invite and I encourage my fellow board members in joining with me to push for advancing the most ambitious statement, the most ambitious plan, the most ambitious set of principles possible to move towards a zero carbon future for San Diego County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. I am incredibly pleased to join with you in this effort. The Board of Supervisors, after tremendous work, adopted a general plan in 2011 that called for a climate action plan. And here we are 1 decade later, and we must actually develop that climate action plan that is legally enforceable, that is valid, that is comprehensive, and that work starts now. There are two important things that are really at play here. One is to develop a climate action plan that fulfills our mitigation requirements under CEQA from that 2011 general plan. But it is also important that we take additional steps to address the climate crisis with urgency and the importance that it deserves. I want to extend my thanks to the environmental community that has been working on this issue time and again and holding accountable the actions of its government to not only meet the requirements of the law, but to meet the requirements of the obligation We all have to do our part in tackling climate change. And today's action, if adopted, will outline a set of values that will guide staff and this board as we move forward with creating our new climate action plan and scale up efforts to tackle the crisis. And again, I'm very grateful for the expertise and the willingness of Supervisor Lawson-Remer to contribute so much to this effort. Through this effort, it is possible that we can realize a future that creates good green jobs, prioritizes environmental justice communities, and leads to deep and sustainable cuts in greenhouse gas emissions. There's a number of things we need to do. We have to update our data. We have to make sure we are using good baseline data, recalculating our emissions, recalculating our modeling, to make sure that it is not only informed decision-making, but it is based in the reality of what is true. We have to devise strategies that don't rely on carbon offsets to meet our emission reduction targets, and particularly not out-of-county offsets that have a tendency to exacerbate environmental justice challenges and also are questionable on enforcement and viability. We need to scale up our level of ambition to meet net carbon emissions, drastically working to cut vehicle miles traveled, converting to more renewable energy, and undertake other policy changes that can slash carbon emissions. And again, prioritizing climate justice and making investments in the right place based on data and science. In this new plan, I don't believe we should just meet the minimum requirements that are required by CEQA. We have to cut emissions drastically over the next decade and exceed Senate Bill 32 targets of 40% cut in emissions below 1990 levels by 2030, a date that is not that far in the future. We are required by state law to meet this target. But we want to focus our cap on the ability to do more. We need to align our actions to achieve net zero emissions no later than 2045 in accordance with Governor Jerry Brown's Executive Order B 5518. Although this executive order is not binding in state law, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do everything we can to achieve that executive order and move aggressively to meet that target. We need to invest in our communities most impacted by climate change. We should lay out a pathway to 100% clean energy, not just 90% that was in our previous plan. And again, take all of these actions in an effort to reform and rethink and reshape our approach to these issues. Adaptation and resiliency must be included, not just as climate mitigation, but as operating principles in how we move forward. And so to achieve these, we're asking the Chief Administrative Officer to develop a climate action plan that exceeds state mandates and guides our region towards zero carbon, will be comprehensive, legally enforceable, use updated data and modeling, not rely on the purchase of carbon offsets, shaped by community input and centered around environmental justice. And I'm pleased to have us here today. Why don't we go to public comment and then we can come back. I'll put a motion on the table and we can have board discussion. So I'll ask the clerk if there's any requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'll note for the record that we received 11 comments on this item, and we have 8 requests to speak on this item. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted, and then you'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, our first caller is 6207. 6207.
Good morning. My name is Monica de la Cruz, and I'm calling with the Environmental Health Coalition. We're calling to support the renewed effort for the county's climate action plan and request that it use Cal EnviroScreen to identify environmental justice communities, as well as include an air quality strategy. We are encouraged to see the new leadership at the county making climate action a priority, and we strongly support the renewed effort put forth by Chair Fletcher and Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Our environmental justice communities are experiencing the consequences of climate change today and cannot continue to be told to wait for the county to act. It is right that supervisors called out environmental justice in this letter, but we need to be sure we are clear when we talk about justice and reversing the harm that is done in our communities. Your commitment to climate justice also demands that you use the most comprehensive cumulative health, environmental, and socioeconomic data. Cal Screen 3.0 is the best tool available to serve as the basis for prioritizing communities of concern at the regional level in the county's climate action plan. We recommend that you start with the top 25% of communities at the county level. It is fundamental that the climate action plan include an air quality strategy. Addressing air quality is key to reversing the harm done in our EJ communities. And we must fight for every person's right to clean air in this climate action plan through deliberate, specific, and measurable air quality strategies. The quality of the air that we breathe cannot be treated with incremental measures and decades-long timelines. It is fundamental and must be prioritized now. Thank you, and we look forward to working with the county in drafting this bold new plan.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2750. 2750.
Good morning, Chairperson Fletcher and board members. I'm Dan Silver of Endangered Habitats League. First, I'd like to personally welcome the new board members. Endangered Habitats League strongly supports this vital initiative. Addressing climate change means that all levels of government must do their part. Local government has unique authority over the transportation sector, which is a make or break component. In a revised climate action plan, the county should use its land use authority to get at the root cause of high GHG emissions in the transportation sector, which is development distant from jobs and inaccessible to transit. Pursuing this goal of development with low vehicle miles traveled also works hand in hand with goals of equity and affordable housing. We look forward to working with you on this and many other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8046. 8046.
Good morning, Chair and Board. My name is Noah Harris, Policy Advocate with Climate Action Campaign, calling to comment on this framework for our future actions to achieve bold climate action at the County of San Diego. First, I want to thank the supervisors for demonstrating a renewed dedication to climate action, including a commitment to adopting a gold standard climate action plan. After almost 10 years of failed climate plans from the county and an ever-intensifying climate crisis, we need our elected leaders to finally take real action on climate change. To that end, we urge the board to extend today's new emissions reduction goals beyond the proposed net zero carbon emissions target by committing to a zero carbon climate action plan. Alignment with Executive Order B5518 is a great start, but the most up-to-date climate science says that we must fully transition off of fossil fuels as soon as possible to stave off the most devastating impacts of climate change. We must secure major emissions reductions and no longer allow market-based offset schemes that simply shuffle carbon around the globe. A zero carbon cap would be groundbreaking, and it's what we need to ensure a livable and thriving future in San Diego. Finally, I want to note that we are working on legislation, AB 11, which calls for a regional approach to climate action through the establishment of a regional climate authority. And we're excited to collaborate with the county on that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2809. 2809.
Thank you. This is Dr. Peter Anderson representing the Sierra Club. We're delighted that the supervisors have this on the agenda, and we welcome Supervisor Lawson-Remer of Vargas and Anderson to the board. We have great optimism about the progress this board will make on climate and a number of other issues. The U.S. Department of Defense lists the #1 existential threat to the United States of America as climate change, not Russia, not China, not terrorism, but climate change. And this is not only a global problem, it has distinct impacts locally in terms of drought, in terms of atmospheric rivers, in terms of massive wildfires, and in terms of sea rise that can inundate our local communities. So Sierra Club is willing and happy to join with you. We've been meeting for months with your staff And we have recently submitted to the Board of Supervisors and to your staff on behalf of Sierra Club a climate action term sheet which has more than 50 recommendations on things the county can do to implement it. Leading among those is stopping sprawl development. It turns out that if we stop sprawl development and stop building in the high fire areas, we both curtail the chance of wildfire here in San Diego County, and we reduce vehicle miles traveled, a leading source of carbon in San Diego County. So thank you, Board of Supervisors. Sierra Club looks forward to partnering with you. We're under Judge Taylor's order to continue to work with you, and we will continue to do that. And we look forward to a fabulous climate action plan for the citizens of San Diego County. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8340. 8340.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Lucero Sanchez with San Diego Coastkeeper. I would like to speak in favor of Agenda Item 5. Thank you to Supervisor Fletcher and Supervisor Lawson Raymer for your leadership. Our county is already seeing many of the effects climate change brings, like wildfires and coastal erosion. So we must take bold action now, and this framework is a really great step forward. We hope that the new Climate Action Plan can advance multi-benefit green infrastructure and integrated water solutions that address pollution, climate change, ensuring safe and secure water supplies, reducing flooding, and advancing equity in the county. San Diego Coastkeeper is eager to work with the county towards a green, clean, and safe San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0771. 0771. Please press *6 to unmute yourself now. You may proceed. You're unmuted.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Chairman Fletcher and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Joe Gabaldon, and I'm SDG&E's Public Affairs Manager, speaking on behalf of my 4,400 colleagues. At SDG&E, we support this action to set new goals for renewable energy and greenhouse gas reductions. We were pleased to have collaborated with county staff on various elements of the Climate Action Plan's development. We look forward to recommending new strategies for consideration. We have been working hard to reduce regional emissions, and we're the first of 33% renewable energy and now lead the way at 45%, mostly local, all built with partners in the labor movement and not a single contract for coal. We have voiced to you for several years, SDG stands behind customer choice and will support the development of the county's Community Choice Energy, or CCE, to procure renewable energy. Our highly trained experts stand ready to support the county through this process, whether you choose 90% or 100% renewable energy. With the CCE or CCA, SDG&E will continue to operate transmission and distribution system and to deliver the energy mix procured by the county. Critical natural gas services to heat homes, power restaurants, and generate energy resource adequacy will also continue to be provided by SDG&E and delivered by our highly trained employees. At SDG&E, we're focused on the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in California, transportation. About 45% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the unincorporated communities come from the movement of goods and people, and electric transportation will be critical to curbing these impacts on all communities. We will also explore opportunities to work with the county on renewable energy integration, energy storage, and joint advocacy on issues that will benefit all customers in the region. You have a partner in me and our team, and we're proud to join you in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6979. 6979.
Good morning, Pam Hetherington, Environmental Center of San Diego. Let's begin by reminding ourselves that the environment is the foundation for all living things. Bad environment, bad outcomes. Nothing short of achieving a bold climate action plan will do. Many years and millions of dollars in lawsuits have been wasted trying to circumvent our duty to protect the public good. Time is not on our side in the fight against climate change. It is our hope that the new cap is bold and goes beyond and above what is required. We have wasted too much time already. Climate change is the greatest tragedy of the commons we face today. We enthusiastically support the framework for our future and its initial steps to tackle climate change in San Diego. And let's start with those most impacted. Thank you, Supervisor Fletcher and Lawson Remer, for leading the county on the path to a positive and life-affirming change. Our hope is that this is welcomed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you so much. I'll make a motion with one minor change the clerk will note. In recommendation number 1, it presently says, and will achieve at a minimum. We want to strike will achieve at a minimum and replace with meet and exceed. So it will read, develop a climate action plan for the County of San Diego that is comprehensive and legally enforceable, does not rely on the purchase of carbon offsets to meet emission reduction targets, uses updated data and modeling, emphasizes environmental justice and equity, is shaped by community input, and will meet and exceed Senate Bill 32 greenhouse gas emission reductions of 40% below the 1990 levels by 2030, and establish actions to meet a goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2045 in line with Executive Order B 5518. So it's just that change. So I would make that motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second the motion, but I have a friendly amendment to that motion.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you. So first, I would just want to say, Supervisor Lawson Remer and Chair Fletcher, that I strongly support the framework of this board letter, and I think this is critical. I would add, after modeling, setting clear goals and measurable metrics that shows how we are ensuring environmental justice and equity, for that piece to be added to it. And I think Supervisor Fletcher already added the exceed. But then also when it says meet a goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2035 to 2045, I'm not sure how you feel about that, but would like to be very specific about that. And I think if this framework of the climate action plan for the plan really has to be intentional when we're talking about centering frontline communities, our communities that are being hit the hardest with the climate crisis and have contributed to the least.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. We need to be clear of uplifting communities, community-led solutions, and including these solutions in our action plan. District 1, as you know, has unique challenges of air pollution, where communities like Barrio Logan have shorter life expectancy than communities north of the 8th Freeway, simply because of the air that they breathe. And so I'm aware that there's not one solution to combat the climate crisis, and that is why it's important that we in the county have meaningful and creative engagement in this climate action plan. I'm excited to support this framework, and I look forward in seeing a climate action plan that is intentional and centering equity with measurable metrics to show our progress in achieving environmental justice.
Thank you, Supervisor. Can you repeat what you had after modeling, just so we can get it right in the record? Use updated data and modeling.
Yeah, setting clear goals and measurable metrics that show how we are.
Hold on. You got to write it down.
Sorry.
Setting clear goals.
And measurable metrics.
Okay.
That shows how we are ensuring environmental justice and equity.
Okay.
Comma, and continue the rest.
And then continue the rest. Okay.
And then the last one was meet a goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2035-2045.
Okay.
More explicit.
Okay. I have no problem with those at all. And you're the seconder of the motion. I assume Supervisor Lawson Remer, you're good?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Supervisor Anderson.
I'm going to be supporting it today because we have a housing crisis. And without a climate action plan, our cost of housing is much more expensive. It takes longer to process, and the costs are much greater. And I think that our goal of attainable housing for San Diegans is important. So I'll be supporting it today because this will speed up the process and lower the cost overall. I do have some reservation in the sense that, unlike other counties in California, they have not tied their climate action plan to their general plan. And so as a result, they can have lofty goals that they have no intention of attaining. Our goals will be attained in order to move forward. And so I would caution that we wouldn't get too far ahead of technology, and that the goals at the end of the time frame actually are achieved. Too often in California, people will set these lofty goals to either don't attain it or they make it impossible to attain. So I would just caution as we move forward with the subcommittee that they look at providing for their communities the housing that's necessary, and that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot as we move forward in protecting the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I share those sentiments about, you know, housing in large part because we haven't had this in a good way. It's been tied up in litigation. It's been difficult, and this will provide some clarity and some certainty, and there's certainly opportunities. And then, you know, we also have to be mindful of what is required by law and what is aspirational, and balance all of that in the mix of what we're doing. Just one quick point: we're not creating there is no board subcommittee on this item. This is just direction to the CAO.
Okay, that clarification.
Of course,
appreciate it.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
I just wanted to build on Supervisor Anderson's comments that, you know, absolutely addressing our affordable housing crisis is a top priority. And I think you're right that, you know, when we have clarity around our climate goals and how we're going to meet our climate crisis, we can do a much better job of meeting our affordable housing crisis, and certainly meeting both of these really, really urgent priorities go hand in hand. And I'm very much looking forward to working with everyone on all of these issues in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments. You know, I've always been supportive of a climate action plan. When I was mayor of San Marcos, we put one forward. We got it approved. Just a quick comment is, you know, we still have in the unincorporated area, according to the regional housing needs assessment, we have to build 6,700 units in the unincorporated area, according to the Sandag numbers. And so we have to be, you know, cautious in that we have to live up to our responsibilities, particularly in the unincorporated. And 6,700 homes is a lot of houses for the unincorporated area. And I agree, we need much more affordable housing. And I have a question for you. I guess, Supervisor Fletcher, or Chair Fletcher, you had stated in the beginning about carbon offsets outside of the county. So in your, I guess, recommendation number one, do not rely on purchase of carbon offsets to meet emission reduction targets. Is that the intent, to not allow any carbon offsets, or if there's local level or local registries available in the future, is that a possibility? I'm just curious, because I think that would be helpful if we were able to use local offsets, carbon offsets, but possibly not go out of the county. I think you mentioned that earlier. So
yeah, your sense of that is correct.
Okay, so county registry, local registry be okay to use as offsets. All right, thank you.
Great. All right, so we have a motion and a second. I'll just, for the record, motion by myself, second by Supervisor Vargas, with the following three changes. In recommendation one, where it says, quote, will achieve at a minimum, we will strike that and replace with meet and exceed. In recommendation one, after modeling, we will add a section that says setting other goals and measurements, metrics that will show we are addressing environmental justice concerns. And then where it says 2045 in the last line, it will say 2035-2045. With that,
clear goals. Sorry, clear goals.
Clear goals. All right, let's have clear goals. Perfect. Thank you. Got it. With that, we have a motion and a second. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
That concludes our business before the board today. I believe we have one public speaker who was not able to get in for non-agendized public comment at the beginning who may be with us. I'll ask the clerk if that individual has joined. We would love to hear from them.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fletcher. That individual has joined, and we will now call on that individual, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record.
Yes, 9944. Please address the board now.
Hello, this is Jaden James. I'd just like to start off by talking about the move that was yesterday about declaring racism a public health crisis. I thought it was a very shiesty move, and the fact to pull it from the consent calendar at the request of the public, only to have it put back on 3 hours later. What is the point of the agenda there? However, this is the thing I'd like to talk about. First of all, racism is wrong and should always be condemned. However, I believe the proposal of classifying it as a public health crisis could lead down a dangerous and dark unintended road. The definition of racism is very much in flux, especially in recent years. Many people hear the term racism and imagine overt prejudice or systematic oppression immediately. But there are many situations that come down to microaggressions, where people are not intentionally hateful and do not intend to offend the other person. We've seen racist labeled as somebody mispronouncing a name, planning for the future, and even businesses selling burritos. While the California legislature has not released its bill proposals for 2021, I've seen the Senate Bill 416 in New York, which would amend public health law for the removal and detention of cases, contacts, and potential carriers who are maybe a danger to the public health. It continues that the person shall be detained for periods until that person is no longer contagious or infected with the disease. I cannot help but see the potential issue of the proposal and something like the New York bill lining up. I will say again, racism is wrong and it should always be condemned. But there's a difference between blatantly hating somebody for the color of their skin and accidentally mispronouncing a name, with the possible consequences of being removed and detained from society. I just want to get this on the record because there are better ways as a county for us to address the issue of racism rather than declare it a public health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the request for non-agenda public communications this morning.
Thank you. We have one adjourn in memory. I would like to adjourn today's Board of Supervisors meeting in honor of Ralph Dotinga. Ralph was the son of Dutch immigrants and dairy farmers, an imposing figure, 6 feet, 6 inches tall. He taught elementary school, starting at Chula Vista Elementary for nearly 30 years. It was in his teaching career where he met his bride-to-be. Together, they had 2 sons and were dear members of the community. He had an infectious spirit, a good nature about him. It's been reported he always viewed his primary purpose in life, in addition to being an educator, was to be a good husband and a good father to his 2 sons. One of his sons, Randy, wrote a heartbreaking piece chronicling the travails that his father went through dealing with COVID-19. And he called his dad, Ralph, the rock of their family. He was a fighter who time and again managed to bounce back from health setbacks. Late in his life, he faced a series of challenges, but he was a strong person and he was a fighter. At 85 years old in COVID, unfortunately, he met his match. He succumbed to the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. And unfortunately, he did so during the holiday season, during a time where he could not be around his family. They could not visit him. He was unable to see his wife and his sons. Randy, his son, has pointed out a very important pre-existing condition that he had. He was alive. And then he wasn't alive because of COVID-19. His wife, now widow, was also struck by the COVID-19 pandemic. And their entire family has been stricken by the grief of this loss and the terrible nature of COVID-19 and the very real sense in some ways that the level of spread and death appears to have been avoidable. And I think that his death, one of the more than 1,800 San Diegans who we have lost to COVID-19, should remind us all of the tremendous human toll that is taken not just on those we lose, but on those that are left behind. And we extend our deepest condolences and thoughts to his widow, to his sons, to everyone whose life he touched, including countless students that have spoken out about what he meant to them. Ralph Dotinga will be missed greatly and will not be forgotten. With that, this meeting stands adjourned.
The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, January 26, 2021. Thank you.